Alright, hello YouTube and welcome back to our modeler tutorials. We're going to start off a bit quick here, so let's get our object up. So last time we went over some of the modify and we went into a little bit of multiply, but we didn't quite go all the way through. I think we went through lathe, a little bit of bevel and extrude, and that was pretty much it. But there are other things here. So right now we are limited to the amount of polygons we have on this object here, and through multiply we'll be able to create more polygons or more objects depending on what you are working with. So let's say if I wanted this box here to be a lot more complex so I can do more with it. The easy way of doing that is pressing Shift D, and that brings up Subdivide. We're going to set to facet 0, 0 fractal. If you add fractal, it will sort of randomize things. It'll make it look all jaggedy and messed up. Smooth will smooth out certain parts of it. So if you add fractal and you add smooth, it'll have smoother fractal. And metaform is just a different way of doing smooth. So let's go facet. Because it's the it won't change how the object looks in any way, and fractal 0. So you'll notice there's no difference here, but under here we have perfect incisions along the axis here, going all the way through the object. These are extra polygons that have now been added to the object, as you can see. So we have more detail to work with. You'll also notice that it's doubled, or quadrupled, I mean, the amount of polygons. We originally had 1 polygon, now we have 4. If we do that again, we'll have 4 in each little quadrant. And all it does is continue quadrupling it, and you'll get pretty high polygon before you even realize what's happening. So there's 1 quadrant. Contains about 16 polygons, I would guess. It looks like it. So let's go back down to about here, because that's an alright amount of polygons. As a new LightWave user, you do not want to be using too many polygons, otherwise you'll basically drive yourself insane. So that's how you basically add polygons. You can also do this and add it only to those, but I wouldn't recommend it, especially later on when we get to more complex objects. Along with subdivision, which once again is Shift D as the shortcut key. I'm sure you can also find it somewhere in here. I would reckon. Yeah, right here, Subdivide. I would reckon under here somewhere, I don't know. It's hard to say. Anyways, just remember Shift D is to subdivide, give yourself a lot more polygons. You also have tools like Knife, which allows you to just cut straight through polygons or straight through edges. So notice now I've got a little teeny polygon sticking there because I've decided to cut it. Just Control Z to undo that. Here's a better view of it. So I'm cutting straight through. And once again, you have to use one of these views. Do not use the perspective view, otherwise you'll screw it up. And you also have to make sure that you're actually cutting all the way through it. If you do not cut all the way through it, you're going to mess it up, basically. So make sure you cut all the way through it. And there we go. We got little polygons sticking out here, and we can tell that it's done properly in a few ways. If it's done incorrectly, sometimes polygons will disappear because it kind of interferes how they appear. Yeah, basically, if it looks messed up, you've done it wrong. You'll find that Knife, you won't use a huge amount, but it's pretty useful, especially once we get into subpatch modeling. There's slice, which I haven't used all that much. Connect, which I don't think I've used all that much. Subdivide, there it is. Control D, or Shift D, I mean. Triple. Triple we will not be getting into. Basically all it does is tessellate your object pretty much. It's also known as Shift T, and all it does is take all of your polygons here and converts them into triangles, as you'll see here. So it's taken all my polygons and converted them into triangles. However, when you're working with your object, keep it as squares, because triangles are slightly more complex, and they it'll make things a lot more difficult. Like for example, right now I'm dealing with 24 polygons by pressing W for statistics. 24 polygons. If I triple it, or if I tessellate it, if you will, press it now, 48. So it effectively doubles the amount of polygons, and it makes it a lot more difficult to actually work with. We also have mirror here under multiply. So the mirror tool works based off of what view you're in. So this is the front view, and if I want it to mirror over here, I would click here, drag it down, and then let go, and then press space, and then you'll have a mirrored object here. And it changes depending on what view you're in. So this is the right side, so click and drag down. I could also click and drag the other way, click and drag that way, but now it's mirroring somewhere I don't know where it is. I haven't the faintest clue. Doesn't seem to be mirroring anywhere. But basically, that's mirror. You can also mirror X, so it mirrors it over the X-axis. Mirror Y, mirror over the Y-axis. Mirror Z. You have clone, which is alright. Yeah, it's similar to array. So if I wanted, say, one clone would include the first clone. So if I wanted 4 clones, put 4. Let's put an offset of the grid size is 200 meters. Let's actually zoom out a bit. Zoom out 1 meter. So I think this cube is about 1 meter in size. So if we click on clone here, let's create 4, and let's have an offset of 1.5 meters. So what this will do is create clones of this object at an offset of 1.5 meters in the x-axis, and that's what it does. So it's useful for creating multiple things at once. I suppose technically you could use it for buildings, but I wouldn't recommend that. Well, you could use it for buildings, but not all the buildings. If you're building a city, you use something else, including clone. You would use clone and something else. You have array, which is similar, so let's go 4. Oh no, not that many. I don't know how my computer would react to that. Let's go 1.5, 1.5, and 1.5, and okay. And there we go. We got array, which is similar to clone, but it works slightly differently. Array is it's got jitter instead of simply moving it. I don't really like jitter. Jittering is it's too random, so I'm not really into it. Slice, knife, connect, subdivide, triple cut. A lot of these you won't really use. If you heard that beep, I heard a beep anyways. If you heard that beep, that was my headset turning off. It turns off automatically within 10 minutes. We have destroy, which is fracture. This is only available in 11.5, unfortunately, for anybody who has any lower versions, or 11, it's around there anyways. Fracture will sort of, well, here, I guess I could show you. Let's not put so much heavy weight onto my computer while I'm recording. There we go, done. So it's created a separate object, as you can see in this layers panel. So here's the original, here's the fractured version, and you'll notice it's got billions more polygons. And all this is for is when you come to animating, you could take this cube and actually explode it, and these are sort of the chunks and parts that would come off when it explodes. So that's a cool little function that it automatically does for you. It's a bit glitchy occasionally, but you can fix the glitches in it. So leave that for when we get into animating and we start doing some bullet dynamics. Sorry there. We have a thicken, which is we don't really need that because it's more so a it's not really for, it looks cool, but it's certainly not for us right now because we're not quite ready to be doing something like that just yet. We have smooth shift, which is alright. So I should probably explain what smooth shift is. Smooth shift is pretty useful. It's somewhat similar to bevel, but it's designed for multiple polygons, I believe, as well as it's designed for sort of not subpatched objects, subpatch objects. So if I show this right now, yeah, I guess it only really does work in it's similar to extrude, but you don't have to do as much work. So if I take our smooth shift here and bring this out, you'll see that it'll bring it out like that. And with bevel, we could do something special with it, like that. Right. So smooth shift just sort of shifts things outward. It's used in subpatch models, so this isn't subpatched, so we're not going to worry about that just yet. Subpatching will come later when we want more complex objects. Chamfer or chafer or something like that. I don't know what that is. I haven't used that before. Oh yeah. Oh, that's useful. Oh wait, no it's not. It creates triangles. We can't really use this. We can, but it's going to be a little bit more complex. It uses triangles to create the edges, so it's actually not the best way of doing this, but it's kind of cool. Rounder, which we won't be using. I know how to use it, and I know what it does, but it's not that great. Oh, did something for a second there. Extrude, which we already covered. Lathe, we have already covered. Thicken, extender plus. We don't have to worry too much about that. Magic bevel, which is kind of cool. So magic bevel lets you actually grab points and bevel them outward like so. Useful for creating things like tentacles, what have you. Create really interesting objects. The only problem is I do not recommend perspective mode, because as you can see, this tentacle here is actually going into the box. We don't want that. So with magic bevel, you have to be a bit careful. Could always do it this way. So for some people, they'll be looking at this and they're like, way too many polygons. If you're not used to that many polygons, just practice. You'll get used to it sooner or later. For the most part, that basically extends what you need for multiply. I haven't used pretty much anything else as far as any of this goes. Fractalize. I mean, no, we don't want that. That's what fracture is for. Divide. No, don't really need that much. I've used it a couple times, but it's kind of useless actually. Triple, don't need that. Yeah. Bandsaw Pro, we could sort of get into. It just allows you to make precision cuts along an entire. So if I selected these two blocks here, Bandsaw Pro will automatically select the ring that makes up all of these along here, and it will cut them accordingly to what I've chosen. So, whoops. So if I select these two here, click Bandsaw Pro, as you can see, it'll automatically cut them. And if you press N, you can change where the cuts go and how they look. And it's all based off of what you first select. So if I select these top row in this position here, I will get cuts going all along there, like so. It's kind of useful, especially when we come to subpatch modeling, but I'll worry about that later on. So what do we have for detail? Detail, we have merge points. Do we need that? No, not a huge amount. We have unweld, which is a bit useful for trying to get things done. I believe that's Shift U, I think. If we take this point here with our point tool, press Shift U, we no edges selected. But unweld is supposed to. Did that work? No, it didn't. It doesn't use edges, does it? It can't use edges. Maybe I've gone crazy. Whoops. Yeah, I can't unweld. That's a bit crazy. That worked. Basically, unweld just moves it, like it disconnects it. So if I wanted to unweld this polygon from this cube, I press unweld or Shift U, and then I could actually move it off. It's officially unwelded from the cube, so that's all that does. I mean, a couple times it's a bit useful. We already went over flip, which is F to flip polygons. And we don't really need those. I think we're fine for that. Wow, not much there. Reduce points. Reduce, we don't have to worry too much about yet. Collapse polygons is a bit useful. Band glue is quite useful. See if I can do band glue. I don't think I can. I would need a lot more polygons. Let's subdivide this. Alright, let's say if I wanted to get rid of all of these polygons. What if I wanted to turn all of these polygons all on here into one like row or set of polygons? What I would do is I would select the top there like that, because I want these rows to be stuck together basically, and I would go band glue and boom. So I've officially reduced the amount of polygons, but I haven't broken the object. So that's a safe way of reducing polygons if you ever have to optimize your object. So if you have a really, really complex object and you have polygons there that shouldn't be there or that don't have to be there, then you can optimize your object by using band glue, which is really useful. And it does change what sort of orientation you select. So if I select this way, it'll band glue across. If I select this way, it'll band glue up and down, as you see there. So it depends on which way you select. Collapse polygons we don't have to worry about, not yet anyways. Bridge and connect are all right. We don't really need it though, and that's about that. Speed boolean is not bad, but we'll get into that. Right. Just checking through. Fiber effects we'll get into later on. Lexicons we'll get into. Skelegons. You'll probably notice that, oh, my tree plugin is still here. I had to reinstall this program, so I assumed it would all be gone, but it's apparently not. Right. So let's press bevel And let's create something cool. Awesome. That was pretty cool. Let's press bevel again. Oh, now we're dealing with a lot of polygons here. My computer's not really liking it. Ooh. This doesn't look right. Because I'm beveling these as well. Oh well. Alright, I guess we could do this. Alright, let's learn about solid drill, and speed boolean, or boolean as well. Right. So here we're going to have to learn about layers. Let's delete this object, create a new one with only one polygon per side. We don't need this to be 3D, actually. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a door. Now, the way we create doors or windows is we're going to need 2 layers, and what we need is a sort of a template for the door. So make the door fairly thick. You can make it this thick if you wanted to, but it has to be the right sort of size. So that looks like the right size for a door. So create that. So there's our template for a door. Now we've created this in another layer. So what we do is we click on the bottom half of the first layer to shadow it. So you could see our wall, and we have to make sure that our door is inside of that wall. We can see it on this here. There's the wall, the shadow of the wall, and we have to move it close to the ground. Let's move it close to a corner. Let's say about there for door, just to get this done and over with. So we have that. So if we shadow the second layer instead, we have this. So we have our door basically poking out of the wall that we've created. And what we do now is under construct, we go solid drill, and you'll notice all these different things. Basically what you want to do, because I don't recall, I can never remember which one to use. I don't remember if it's boolean I want to use or solid drill or drill, but basically all you want to do is continue trying things until you get it right. Stencil, I think, is the one we want to use. So press OK, and that was right. All right. So what you need to do is that you need to have one layer selected, one layer shadowed, and then go to solid drill stencil. And then with this wall, what we've done is we've stenciled the door onto the wall. So now we can take this door that we've created, cut it from the scene, and then place it on a different layer. We could take the stencil that we've created, delete that. Let's just move the door over to the layer 2, and there we go, we've got a door. Now it's not like it's amazing door or anything, but it's there. Alright, so since we're going to be animating this to move, we're going to need to name our objects so that we can tell the difference between this wall and this door. So the way we do that is we need to select our polygon, or our set of polygons. So if this was a cube, we could select the entire thing, and we would say, oh, probably shouldn't go too far ahead. We would press Q to change surface. We can call this wall. We could call it anything we want. Turn on smoothing, leave this all default, and then press OK. Do that for the door. Call it whatever you want. You cannot call it wall because that name is taken. Make sure smoothing's on, press OK. Now, under the surface editor, which is found here, or by pressing F5, we will have our door. I have interior for some reason. I shouldn't have that, but it's there. Why is that there? Just ignore that. doesn't exist. We have door and wall. Now, because this door is opening, we're actually going to be seeing the separate side. Ooh, the computer's freaking out there. That's a bit weird. We will actually see the separate side of the door. And because the door is currently a two-dimensional object, our doors later on will not be, but because it's currently a two-dimensional object, it has no other side. So we'll go to door here, and we'll click double-sided, and now the door will have a second side here, just so that when we animate it, we can see it move. So under the surface editor, we can change the texture as well as the color. So for the wall, let's make it a darker gray, just so that we can differentiate that is the door. For the wall, let's make it a darker gray, just so that we can tell the difference between the wall and the door. And for the door, let's make it brown. And of course, once we get into actually texturing our objects, we'll have nicer looking objects than just colors. Here we have luminosity, diffuse, specularity, glossiness, which we can't access currently, reflection, transparency, refraction index, translucency, and bump. And we will be getting into all of these later on, but for now, just stick to naming an object, giving it a color. This is known as color coding, and it allows you to basically set up your scene a bit easier. So color things so that you know what they are and you know that they're separate from each other, and it basically makes your job easier. And then we can get into texturing a bit later on. So just as a quick overview, I will actually go over what each of these things are. I might as well. Don't have to go through advanced or shaders or environment or anything like that, but we'll be going through each one of these here. So we have color here. That obviously changes what the color is. So if I adjust this, we adjust what the overall color is of the object. We have luminosity. Luminosity stands for how much light the object itself emits. So if we crank this to 100, the object is actually emitting 100% of light. So that would mean that it is like a light bulb or a flashlight, except for a light bulb or flashlight would be more like 1,000. But because it's a door, doors don't emit any light, so we keep that to 0. So diffuse is how much of light is reflected off of the object. The way LightWave handles light is realistic. So diffuse here, because our object is brown, we see it as brown because the object reflects brown inside the light spectrum. What it does is it takes all the colors of light, in other words, it takes the rainbow, absorbs all the colors but brown, and it actually reflects brown, and that's why we see it as brown. So diffuse, if we lower that, it'll slowly reflect less and less light until it's completely black, because it's no longer reflecting light. Instead, what it's doing is it's absorbing all the light. So this would be similar into the case of a black hole. A black hole absorbs all the light, and that's why it appears all black. And it reflects none of the light spectrum. So if we crank that back to 100%, or if we crank it past 100%, now it's reflecting all the light. So it's becoming more basically white. It would take a lot for it to actually become white. But diffuse 100% is the generic amount. Now, specularity does not exist in the real world. This is a way to fake sort of a reflection almost. but it's sort of a cheat, and it's quite nice looking. So if we turn this on, we have access to our glossiness. So specularity is sort of how much light will sort of scatter onto it, and the more we have, you can see here, the more it's going to create this hot spot. The higher the glossiness, the tighter this hot spot's going to be. The lower the glossiness, the more this hot spot will spread, and it basically makes it more shiny, if you will. But because we're dealing with a door, this door is not really going to be shiny. If we added a texture to it, there is a we would actually add a specularity map, and that would give it really nice shininess to it. That would look realistic. Then we have reflection. Now, real life has reflection. Instead of specularity, real life uses reflection. Every object reflects a little bit of light. Even your skin reflects a little bit of light. So there's actually no such thing as 100% diffuse. There's always at least a little bit of reflection. So we could say like 9% reflection. So basically all reflection is how much of the environment does the object reflect. Here it's how much light the object reflects. Here it's how much environment does the object reflect. So 100% reflection reflects 100% of the environment. Now, if some people like reflections and they think they look nice, but you have to understand that in order to have a reflection look nice, you need an environment that looks nice. Like if we were to take this object here with our reflection and take a picture of it, we wouldn't see anything because there's no environment around it aside from this wall for it to actually reflect off of. So you have to take that into consideration. Now, as a door, there's not much reflection to it, so we don't need very much reflection. Transparency is how much light will pass through it. So if we have 100% transparency, it will appear as invisible because all the light is passing right through it. Refraction index is sort of how much light scatters when it passes through it, and that'll change sort of how the light bends. Translucency is how much light is able to go through it, but not really, like, not fully go through it. So if we crank this to 100%, we'll still see it, but we can see the light behind it. For example, if you take a piece of paper, put it up against your window and look at the sun, or look outside with a piece of paper, you'll still be able to see buildings and whatever is behind the piece of paper, but light is still sort of coming through the piece of paper. This is also known as opacity or opaqueness. So translucency there. Bump is what's happening here is light will scatter off of the object in a certain way. This bump requires a texture of some sort. We cannot have bump without a texture. So it doesn't matter if I change this to 0 right now. As you see, nothing's changed here, or 1,000, or 10,000 even, because we need a texture of some sort. And because we have no texture, it doesn't change anything. So basically all it does is causes light to scatter, and what it does is it fakes a 3-dimensional look to our 2-dimensional texture. And basically what it does is it causes it to look bumpy, if you will. So if I were to find a random texture here, I'm just doing a little bit more advanced stuff. So let's go procedural, turbulence will work, and crank that to 100%. Just watch here. You'll notice that it's changed slightly. Now if we continue cranking that, change more. So what that's doing is that's creating indents and it's creating outdents. And basically it's wherever it's white, it's pushing the texture in. Where it's black, oh wait, no. Where it's black, it's pushing the texture in. Where it's white, it's pulling the texture out. And it's creating this sort of fake three-dimensional look to it. It's very useful for things like bricks, stuff like that. But so far, just practice a bit with naming things. Practice with the solid drill here, and create some windows and maybe a door, and we'll get to animating this later on. Hope you guys have enjoyed the video so far. Please do look forward to more. Comment, rate, subscribe, and this has been The Guardian signing out.